So we're looking at Unit 40, which is teaching in a specialist area. Now, there's 6 learning outcomes, but I'm not going to bore you by reading every single one of them because they're quite long-winded.
Okay.
We're doing learning outcome 1, which is understand the aims and philosophy of education and training in a specialist area. Just catch my breath. I've just been running around like a crazy woman. So 1.1 is explain key aims of education and training in your own specialist area. And 1.2 is analyze philosophical issues relating to education and training in your own specialist area. So let's go. So this slide just goes over what we just talked about, what you'll be learning. So when we're looking at specialist areas, anything can actually be classed as a specialist area. Some things that I can think of from the top of my head are just things like places like primary schools, high schools, further education establishments like a sixth form or a college. They're classed as a specialist area. Any adult education provision is classed as a specialist area. You could be teaching music, healthcare, education and training, maths. Anything that you're working in is actually classed as a specialist area. So it's quite a broad title, really. For you, your specialist area will be primary school. So you're not actually picking a particular topic. You're just going to talk about how you support your students in a primary school. So it wants that image of specialist area because it really invokes an idea of, oh, exactly what is a specialist area? But again, it's quite vague. So when we're looking at specialist areas within a primary school, I've done primary and high school on here. So you're just going to be focusing on what your aims are within your school. So in a way, it'll be something similar to the ethos of your school. I used to work in a school that said we are a caring, sharing school and we nurture our students to become the best versions of themselves. So that was their aim. So with your school, you'll have an ethos as well, and you'll have aims within a school. On a generic part, aims within a setting. So for a primary school, one of the aims within your school will be to have the students become competent learners. You want them to meet the standards as per the national curriculum. And you're going to do this in a number of ways. So you're just going to talk about how you're doing this. So you prepare them to take major tests throughout their primary education, and they take 3 major tests throughout their careers in primary. So the phonics screening test in year 1, and the year 2 and the year 6 SATs test. And obviously they do assessments throughout as well, where they're doing spring, summer and autumn assessments throughout. But your whole aim of you being there is to actually assess them, to get them prepared for further education, to make sure that they're actually meeting the expectations of the awarding body. So are they achieving the expected standard? Are they below the expected standard, or are they exceeding the expected standard? So you're just going to talk about how you do this and the aims of what you're doing for it. For a high school, again, it's the same aims again, to have competent learners, to meet the standards as per the national curriculum. If you were talking about adult education, I would put in to meet the standards as per the awarding body instead. But in a nutshell, it's all done in the same way. So you're doing this again to help prepare your high school students, to prepare them for major tests throughout the high school education. So things like assessments that are done termly, or I think they've renamed them now. They call them CAP tests.
Is it?
Yeah, my daughter was telling me the other day, she said, oh, I had my CAP test. And I'm like, what? She said, CAPs. I'm like, oh, okay. So I had to Google it. I had to pretend I knew what I was talking about. But yeah, they're just really, I think depending on which setting you are or what sort of system you're using, they're still assessments, but they're just calling them CAPs, and they're coded as in, right, in primaries, we do that basic thing where we say achieving standards or below or exceeding. In high school, they're done on a color-coded way. Are you in green, blue, or red? So being on red isn't that great. That means you're below. Being on green, you're expected. On blue means you're above expectations.
Oh, no, my
Yeah.
children have yellow, orange, and red.
Ah, so they must be in like different school set their colours themselves, yeah.
Yeah, not yellow, sorry, green.
Ah,
Green,
right.
orange, and red.
That makes more sense, doesn't it, really? It's like
Yeah,
the traffic light system.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, so all we're doing within these specialist educational areas, we're just making sure that we're supporting our students to do their best to actually achieve what they've set out to. So you prepare them for the mock exams in year 10 and 11, you prepare them for them GCSEs, and then this can be done in a number ways as well. So you're not just getting them ready for formal examinations. You might be getting them ready for assessments and like practical tasks. So I know that for certain, like when I did art GCSE when I was younger, we had all of the year 10 and the year 11 work that I produced was part of my assessment. So you work on it slowly. I know that my son is doing design technology, and he's been doing a project where he's been doing all these graphics and things and creating a project. And he's been doing that since the beginning of year 10, and now he's just handed it in. So that would be part of his assessment for his examinations. So it's not just done in a formal exam way. There's like if you're doing home tech, when I was younger, we used to have my tutor used to be the home tech teacher. So she would teach a cooking class, and then the students would be asked to bring ingredients in, make a special dish, and then it would be checked on the structure and so on, see how it was actually prepared, how an ingredient was written, how a recipe was written out, and so on. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually prepare your students throughout the years. So on here, it sounds more difficult than it is, but all you've got to do is talk about, first identify your specialised area. So just mention that your specialist area is a primary school and which setting you work in, so which year you're in. Then you just look at including the aims here. So talk about how you prepare your students for tests, how you prepare them to be competent learners, how you're assessing them, how you're meeting the national curriculum. And then to help you, you can actually use your job description, because in a job description, it will actually say what the standards are that you're expected to meet. So for you, you would actually look at the job description for a teacher, and you would say, okay, I'm going to be preparing my students for their SATs. I'm going to make sure that they meeting the curriculum standards and how you're going to be doing it. So that can also help in answering this.
Okay.
So are you okay on 1.1?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. So 1.2 is analyze philosophical issues relating to education and training in your own specialist area. So first I'm just going to talk about philosophy. So when you're in education, knowing what the philosophy of your setting is and knowing your own philosophy is very important. Now, philosophy isn't really as difficult as it seems. It's just to know what your own reasoning is, why you're there, what you're doing, and why you want to do what you're doing. So it's basic things, really. It's you putting down what your expectations are, how you're going to support your students. It's you knowing how prepared you are, how much knowledge you have, and what sort of methods of teaching you have. All of these things will help you to be confident and also to manage your classroom very well, actually. These things don't come in one go. It's something that you develop over and over, and there is a lot of self-doubt that happens when you go into teaching, when you go into supporting, because you do second guess yourself and you think, oh, am I working right in this way? But all of these, when you meet somebody who's very confident and knows exactly what they're doing, they're probably going to be somebody who's been in their career for a long time. And if you talk to them, they're going to say, yes, of course, we had a lot of learning curves. So that will always be an area of development. You will know what is working best by trial and error, and you'll know what doesn't work great. It's just the way you adapt your sessions when you're working with students one-to-one as well. You know that this particular thing doesn't engage them. I need to change it and make it to their interest. So it's a big learning curve. So philosophies in education. So for some philosophies that I could think of, that students have the right to learn and get a quality education. And as a specialist area, we can do this in a number of ways. We can help students to access the education in a way which is suited to them, but also meets the standards set by the national curriculum. So again, it's simple, one word, differentiation. That would really sum up this sentence. And again, so differentiate your teaching objectives. So you've got a set of objectives. You know that in year 1, for example, you need to teach your students number bonds, 1 to 10. Some students are going to get a faster, some are not. So you might tweak it and you say, okay, they can't, my certain group is not able to do 1 to 10 at the moment. I'm going to do 1 to 5. But I'm going to teach them to count in 2s first. And I'm going to teach them to count in 1s. I'm going to use little counters to help them. I'm going to, use lots of activities. So you're still doing the same teaching objectives, but you've split it up, you've broken it down. So it might be a longer process, but you're still getting there. Other ways that we can help students to get the best is intervention sessions, group and independent activities where they're working on their own, they're working with others. In some situations, we'll need translators so that we can actually converse with the student. And also sometimes we'll need technologies as well, like smart boards or iPads or certain programs where we'll need to get our student engaged so that they can actually learn. When you're in school, Geeta, what sort of things do you do to help your students to learn and get a good quality education?
Well, I do intervention groups as well, like taking them out for letter formation, for handwriting, for phonics, and supporting within the classroom during literacy and maths.
Yeah. Exactly. So these are things that are done like across the board, aren't they? So first we talked about how to support students to get a good quality education. But again, we talk about testing as well, because part of the national curriculum is where we need to assess our students. So again, like we mentioned in 1.1, you've got the phonics screening, you've got the SATs, you've got your termly assessments, which are done yearly for 3 times a year, so autumn, spring and summer. You've got things like if you're talking about old students who are maybe in college or university or adult education, you'd look at their assignments or their portfolios, GCSEs, A-levels. So in a way, all of these are testing, observations, peer reviews, anything that you look at, they're all observations and testing, aren't they? So testing is quite a good philosophy for students. So when you're conducting these tests, you assess your learner in accordance to the national curriculum, but then you're also able to set them up on the right track of learning so that you know that this student, they're a high achiever, they need to be supported in even more advanced way. They need extra work to help them attain more. This student is at the below expectations. We need to do interventions and one-to-one work so we can push them up. Testing is one of those things that not everybody agrees on. I do like testing, and I think there's a very good reason for it, because if we were to scrap every single test, then we'd be working blindly, wouldn't we? So I know that there's been a lot of debate on if the year 2 SAT should be abolished or if they should keep going. And I know they're quite stressful for staff and for students, but they really do set you up on in my personal opinion, they do set you up on a good basis for your student to learn at the right level going ahead. So these results, like I said, they're going to help you in a lot of ways. They help you to know what sort of interventions a student needs, how we can help them with their future learning journeys. Are they needing to have additional support? There might be some students that might need to be transferred to specialist schools for if they have any educational special educational needs. And you've seen that, okay, we've tried to support them here, it's not working. They need somebody who's more specialized for them.
Mm-hmm.
They put on correct level of studies so they know exactly where they're going forward. And again, I've noticed when I was in school that we focused, and unfortunately, I don't know if this happens in your setting as well, but we end up focusing so much on the students that need additional help to help them progress that we end up ignoring, I think ignoring is a harsh word. It's we end up not paying as much attention to the high achievers.
Yeah.
So they end up being really bored, don't they? And it's just, or they start being disinterested, or their work starts decreasing, or they finish in 5 minutes and then they're just sitting there faffing about. So these tests, they do actually, as long as you're going to pay attention to them, it's really important that you focus on your underachievers to progress them. You focus on your special educational needs children, but also focus on your higher achievers as well, just to make sure that you're pushing them, because they've always got room to learn.
Yeah.
So on here, what I'd like you to do is discuss any specialist aims that are appropriate to your subject area. So, talk. To be honest, these first few points are not really effective for you. I would say talk about encouraging disadvantaged groups to participate in education and training, or enable needs. So not in education, employment, or training to rejoin. The thing that's more possible for you is these philosophies in your area. So focus on this bottom part. You don't need to be really looking at these bits here.
Okay.
So focus on what the philosophies in your area, what sort of quality of education is there, what sort of accessibility do you have, how do you differentiate with. So really I would start off by saying, start off by talking about the testing, and then go into talking about that every student has a right to good quality education, and then talk about how you physically do that. Do you have any questions for 1.2?
No.
Okay. So to finish off, we just looked at the key aims of education and training in your own specialist area and philosophical issues relating to education and training in primary schools for yourself. So I'm going to... Yeah.